Excuse me. It's shaking the camera. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for streaming. I travel all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, I appreciate it so much when the guy before me was doing it.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I would help if I knew anything about hockey, but I don't know. So.
I would take any help I can get.
Yeah, but I'm here. If you ever need help, let me know.
This is not my thing.
Well, you're doing a wonderful job.
And we're live right now. I would take any help I could absolutely get.
Well, if you need anything, let me know.
I'm so glad your son's on the team.
Oh, well, he's having a great time. He's answering right now. So
What's that?
He can't play right now.
Oh,
but
okay.
Next time he gets to play.
Well, we'll get him back in there.
Is everybody sitting right here or over there?
I'm not sure. People just kind of mill around.
All right. Find a spot.
All right, Rockhurst hockey fans, I believe we are live here for the JV game. If anybody's dialed in, just let me know. Send up a smoke signal or something. I think we're live, and I think we're on YouTube and on the Rockhurst channel. So if you're not on the Rockhurst Hockey YouTube channel, well, then you don't know what's going on. So for those of us that are in the know, here we are, coming live from the Independence Community Ice Rink. Nice fresh sheet of ice here. Start the JV game. And I believe they're going to do 13-minute periods for the JV game. Rockhurst varsity just lost by a score of 5-3. Good hard-fought game. A lot of the same players will be out here for the JV game, plus a few other guys you didn't see in the varsity game. And a few of the varsity players have undressed and heading for home. The officials have taken to the ice. They're getting the nets set up, getting everything in position here. Nothing like a fresh sheet of ice to come out onto. There's a horn, so the buzzer on the scoreboard is apparently not working, and the refs have been taking care of that. We've got an air horn and some whistles, and so we're just doing it old school style here, as we don't have a fancy electronic buzzer to work with tonight.
camera over.
There's the air horn indicating the end of the warm-up period here before our JV game. Rockhurst gathering in by the goal. Looks like we are set for a 13-minute period. The JV game will consist of 3 13-minute periods. Rockhurst getting their motivation together. Puts Teddy Houlihan in to start. We're just going to go right out to center ice and have a face-off and get underway. So it looks like we have Press centering, Alibrando, Callahan. Here we are for the puck drop, and off we go. Rockhurst pulls it back. Tavish back to get it. Callahan comes up behind, coming through strong, intercepted by St. Joe. A battle back and forth there, neutral zone. Can't quite see what's going on in the corner there, but puck comes out center. Rockhurst trying to fire off a shot. poking away. St. Joe goaltender forced to smother that one. See if I can get a little better position here. See a little bit more of the ice. There we go. Puck drops back to Rockhurst. Rockhurst trying to get a shot off. Just goes wide. Rockhurst keeping the pressure on. St. Joe trying to bring it up around the sideboards to get it out. St. Joe sends it down into the corner. Rockhurst chasing behind the net, sets up. Rockhurst with a long centering pass, doesn't connect to anybody, but gets it out of the zone. Rockhurst keeps on coming. Rockhurst shoots one up high, bounces over the net. St. Joe breaks up that pass, stopped at the blue line. Here comes St. Joe, trying to get a breakaway. Coming through center ice, goes wide. Rockhurst bringing it back up the other direction. Robinson skate through center. Dishes it down low. St. Joe takes it away. St. Joe coming up through center ice. St. Joe, long shot from the blue line. Stopped by Houlihan. St. Joe picks it up at center ice. Alibrando breaking it up. Tavish around behind the net, coming out with a little speed, sends it up to the neutral zone, unable to connect with Alibrando. Rockhurst offside. So that face-off will come back. I think they're going to put that one right in front of the St. Joe bench there on the blue line. Face-off, won by Rockhurst. They draw it back to the defense. McTavish picks it up. St. Joe intercepts. Big collision at the blue line. And that looked like that's going to be a Rockhurst penalty. I don't think it was intentional, but it was a big collision. Rockhurst got the better end of it. And that's going to send one of the Rockhurst players to the box. It's the St. Joe player still down on the ice. Sorry to see that happen. We don't ever like to see anybody get hurt like that. I think he's going to be okay. I think he just needs to recover a little bit. It was a pretty hard collision. Both players going at it. And he's up off the ice. I don't think there was any ill intent there, but two players going after that puck that hard, things are bound to happen. So Rockhurst will have a player in the box. It looks like that's number 18, McTavish. Face-off comes down into the Rockhurst end. It's going to be to the right of Houlihan. It's only a 2-minute penalty, I think, because it wasn't intentional. Face-off. Callahan takes the face-off. Rockhurst gets it out of the zone. Callan bringing it up. Callan looking for that short-handed shot there. Rockhurst pressuring. Rockhurst all over it. Rockhurst keeping after it. Face off to the right of the St. Joe goaltender. Quick shot and a save. Wow. Quick shot by Rockhurst as they won that face off. It looked like Cowan got a really quick shot off on goal there. So that face off will come back once again to the right of the goaltender. Rockhurst shorthanded. 4 skaters. St. Joe with 5 skaters. Cowan facing off, draws it back to the defense. Another quick shot. St. Joe with a breakaway, heading down on goal. Shot deflected by Houlihan up into the netting. So we've got 9:52 left in the first period. Minute 24 left in the penalty play to Rockhurst, or the shorthanded play. So a minute 24 left in the penalty to Rockhurst. Rockhurst shorthanded here. Facing off. Rockhurst pulls it back into their own corner, but St. Joe there to get it close. St. Joe bringing it around the corner, looking to set up a play. St. Joe trying to send it back to the point. They do, but Rockhurst breaks it up. St. Joe gets it back. Deflected by Houlihan. Gets a piece of the glove on it. Rockhurst in along the boards, a little shoving and pushing back in there, nothing wrong with that. Centering pass by St. Joe, they're unable to get the stick on it, back to the point. Long shot, scooped up by Houlihan. So we have 9 minutes, 9 seconds left in the first period. 40 seconds left in the penalty to Rockhurst, to McTavish. So Rockhurst still with only 4 skaters out there. St. Joe with 5 skaters. Face off to the left of Houlihan. Puck is dropped. Rockhurst wins it, clears the zone. Rockhurst fires it all the way down in and gives chase. Rockhurst behind the net, forechecking on this shorthanded play here, not letting St. Joe get anything going. Turned around there by Alibrando, staying on it. St. Joe finally gets something moving. The Rockhurst is all over him, not letting him get a shot. St. Joe fighting for that behind the net. Rockhurst comes away with it. Here comes Rockhurst, shorthanded up the ice. 4 seconds left in the penalty. Rockhurst with a shot, and that's deflected by the goaltender off to the sideboards. Rockhurst is at full strength now. St. Joe coming through the blue line. Rockhurst down in behind the net. Rockhurst sends it around behind the net. That one's up to Corntager. Alibrando tried to pass that, got intercepted. Rockhurst changing on the fly, trying to get their regular lines back up. They had their short-handed crew on there, and now they're back to a regular line. St. Joe sends it all the way down behind the net. Rockhurst picking it up, looking for a pass. They get it up to the center ice. St. Joe sends it around behind their own net. Rockhurst picks it off. Rockhurst trying to make a play happen. St. Joe breaks it up, sends it all the way down. That looks like that'll be an icing, and it is an icing call. So 7 minutes, 30 seconds. 7 minutes, 30 seconds left in the first period. Score 0-0. Rockhurst keeping it in at the blue line. Rockhurst sends it down into the corner. Rockhurst there first to pick up the puck. Christian, long shot from the point, goes wide. St. Joe trying to come through middle of the ice, unable to get anything materializing. McTavish hustles back to get it. McTavish coming around behind the net, looking for setting up a play. Here comes Robinson. Robinson taps it over to Christian. Christian with a shot. Rockhurst centers across the crease, shoots again, goes wide all the way out and out of the zone. Here comes Christian bringing it down again. Christian circling at the red line, dumps it all the way down in. Big hit on Christian, legal. Good check. St. Joe tries to find that cherry picker out there. Rockhurst hustles back to get it. 2 men on him. And it looks like we might have gotten a little over aggressive there on that one. No penalty called. 5 minutes, 57 seconds left in the first period. Rockhurst wins the face-off, draws it back to the defense in the corner. Rockhurst coming up the sideboards with it. Rockhurst with a nice move, pushes it in towards the goal. Nobody there. With some good pressure. St. Joe comes back through the neutral zone, coming over center ice. Rockhurst attempts a shot, broken up by the Rockhurst defense, and a big hit down in the end. It's some good physical hockey here, folks. And we have a St. Joe player down. So that puck will be dropped right in front of the Rockhurst bench here, just over the blue line. Rockhurst wins the face-off, sends it back to their defense. St. Joe hustles in. Here comes Rockhurst through the neutral zone. 3-on-2. St. Joe breaking it up. Rockhurst sticking with it, trying to get that shot. Here's a quick, close shot on goal by Rockhurst. Saved by the St. Joe goaltender. St. Joe trying to bring it out. Rockhurst breaks it up. Center ice. St. Joe hustling after that puck. Gets a shot on goal. Rockhurst just flings it down the ice, but it's tipped by the St. Joe defense. Down to the St. Joe goaltender. Here comes St. Joe again. Broken up by Rockhurst. Long shot by St. Joe, goes far wide of the net. Rockhurst back to retrieve it behind the net. Rockhurst bringing it up along the sideboards, unable to get it out of the zone. McTavish back. Picks it up the sideboards. St. Joe trying to do a wraparound. St. Joe gets that puck bouncing out in front of the net, but unable to get any traction on it. Houlihan doing a good job of shutting down that side of the net. McTavish with a great pass. Shot on goal. Great shot by Rockhurst. Not able to capitalize on it, but some great pressure. McTavish sends it back down in. Rockhurst looking to change up lines. St. Joe finds a player up along the sideboards. St. Joe with pressure coming in. Hard shot goes wide. St. Joe coming around behind the net in the corner. Sends it back around behind. Rockhurst bringing it up along the sideboards. Clears the zone. It's a foot race. Rockhurst with a little bit of an edge there. Rockhurst coming in and shot. Great save by the St. Joe goaltender. Great opportunity generated by Rockhurst, but unable to capitalize on that one. Here comes St. Joe back the other way. Hits Cowan. Puck goes flying down into the corner. Cowan intercepting at center. Here comes Rockhurst again with a 3-on-2. Rockhurst, long shot, goes wide, comes all the way up the sideboards. And looks like that one was offsides eventually. Just a little batting around back and forth there at the net. So we have a penalty. It looks like Rockhurst. I couldn't see from my angle here what it was, but apparently Rockhurst got into that scrum and did something. So that face-off will be to the left of Teddy Houlihan. We have a puck drop here. Rockhurst shorthanded for 2 minutes. St. Joe with a one-man advantage. Rockhurst breaks that one out. St. Joe hustling back to pick it up, and Rockhurst staying on him, not letting him have an easy pass there. St. Joe coming over the blue line. St. Joe picking it up. Little backhand, scooped up by Teddy Houlihan. We have 2 minutes. 2 minutes left in the first period. Score is 0-0. St. Joe with a one-man advantage. Rockhurst playing shorthanded for another minute and 36 seconds. There's the face-off. St. Joe brings it back to their defense. They try to dump it in. St. Joe keeping it in at the blue line. St. Joe looking for that shot. Goes far wide of the net. Behind the net, back out to the point again. Back down in behind the goal. Rockhurst getting there first. Let's see if Rockhurst can get this thing out of here. Rockhurst finally clears the zone. And what did we have there? There was a penalty behind the play on St. Joe. They sent one man to the box. Minute 34 left. Four-on-four hockey here for right now. Rockhurst sends it around. St. Joe trying to get a play moving through the neutral zone. St. Joe sends it around behind the net, bounces out in front. Picked up by Rockhurst, but stopped by St. Joe at the blue line. 51 seconds left in the period. No ice, that was tipped. Rockhurst sends it down the ice. We are 4-on-4 still for another 17 seconds. Rockhurst across the blue line. Rockhurst looking for a shot. Shot stopped by the goaltender. Face-off. Rockhurst at full strength. St. Joe trying to break one out. Rockhurst hustles back to pick it up. Rockhurst sends it over. Here comes Blasdell. Quick shot, and that is the end of the period. So, after the end of one period of play, Rockhurst 0, St. Joe Griffons 0. Rockhurst, for another 26 seconds at the beginning of the period, will have a one-man advantage. Rockhurst skating the other direction now. We're in the second period of play. Rockhurst with only 10 seconds left on their power play. Christian passes it up. St. Joe takes it away. St. Joe looking for a shot. St. Joe trying to circle around. Rockhurst breaks it up, doesn't let him get anything going. Both teams at full strength at this point. Shot by St. Joe, deflected into the corner by Houlihan. Here comes Rockhurst through the neutral zone. Christian bringing it in. Christian looking for a drop pass. Picked up by St. Joe. St. Joe sends it through the neutral zone. It's a foot race with Rockhurst hustling back. I like seeing the hustle that Rockhurst is showing to get back on that puck. St. Joe keeping it in at the blue line. Rockhurst deflects it out. Here comes Rockhurst over the blue line. Blasdell drop pass to Christian. Christian shot. Blocker saved by St. Joe. Great play. Great setup. Great shot. Like seeing that. And what do we have here? Apparently we have a penalty on Rockhurst. Puck is dropped. Sent all the way down the ice. Rockhurst ices one down the ice. Back behind the net. Rockhurst flips another one out through the zone. 49 seconds left in the penalty. Rockhurst picks it up shorthanded. Sends another one back down in. Callahan shoots it behind the net. St. Joe slips. Callahan there to pick it up. 28 seconds left in the penalty. Long shot from the blue line by St. Joe. Good shot. Here comes Robinson coming through the ice, short-handed. Finally picked up by St. Joe. Kept in at the point by Callahan. Callahan looking for a shot. Rockhurst full strength. Rockhurst sends it through the neutral zone. St. Joe picks it up at their own zone. St. Joe sends it all the way down, and that will be an icing. So that's an icing on St. Joe. Comes all the way back down into their end. Both teams skating at full strength. 9 minutes, 2 seconds left in the second period. Face-off. Won by St. Joe. They pull it back to their defense. Rockhurst sends it all the way down. That'll be an ice. That will be an icing call. Score is still 0-0. Face-off, drawn back to the point for St. Joe. St. Joe just does not connect on a pass, and that comes out of the zone. Rockhurst hustles after him. Comes Blasdell trying to pick that up. Blasdell keeping after him. Blasdell and Alibrando coming over the blue line. Blasdell with a shot, far wide right. Picked up by St. Joe. Here comes St. Joe with a 2-on-1 opportunity. Centering pass goes clear through the slot. Rockhurst fires one down. Rockhurst looking for a shot. Quick shot. And a glove save by St. Joe. So with 7 minutes, 58 seconds left in the second period, we still have a score of 0-0. Good hit by McTavish along the sideboards there.
Get
7 minutes, 23 seconds left. Shot batted down by the St. Joe goaltender. Deflection comes back out to McTavish, who shoots again. McTavish with another rebound. Passes, centers it in. Saved by the St. Joe goaltender. A lot of action there. Rockhurst putting the pressure on. St. Joe finally clears. And St. Joe trying to ice it. They can't even ice it. Rockhurst sends it back in. Rockhurst changing up on the fly, trying to keep the pressure on. Some fresh skaters. Shot. Saved by the goaltender. That face-off will be face-off will be to the right of the St. Joe goaltender. We have about 6 minutes, 42 seconds left. Face-off underway. Long shot from the point picked up by the goaltender. Face-off, back to the point of Rockhurst. Shot goes into the corner. Blastel trying to push it in. Quick shot by Rockhurst. Looking for that shot. No goal. That was close. Great shot by Rockhurst there. Rockhurst really keeping the pressure on here on this JV matchup. Here comes St. Joe coming through center ice. Long high shot. Blocker saved by Houlihan. Deflected into the corner. Puck comes all the way out across the blue line. Here comes Plump skating through with it. Plump tries to put it in. Rockhurst with a quick shot. Hits traffic. Rockhurst back with it again. Another quick shot. Pad save. Another shot. And finally they get it in. Finally Rockhurst gets that in the net. It was bound to happen. That one looked like it was bound to happen as Rockhurst just had the pressure on for the last several minutes here. Firing away, firing away. They finally get one and go up by a score of 1-0. Face-off, center ice. St. Joe brings it in. Here comes Alibrando. Alibrando coming up through center ice. Puck bounces way high up in the air. Takes a St. Joe bounce. They come through the center zone. Rockhurst able to clear the zone. Christian giving chase. Shot fired by St. Joe, handled by Houlihan. Rockhurst coming down. Long shot. Great shot in the lower corner by Christian with 4:16 left. .416 in the second period. Rockhurst takes a 2-0 lead. So the Rockhurst JV here lost last night. They're in a lead right now. 4:16 left in the second period. Cowan centering. Cowan wins the face-off, draws it back to the defense. Quickly stolen by St. Joe and coming through with speed. Long, hard shot. Glove save by Houlihan. Face-off is going to be to the right of Houlihan. 4:07 left in the second period. St. Joe trying to get one in. Houlihan snags it down. St. Joe bats one high over the net. Here comes Rockhurst trying to break it out of the zone. Rockhurst coming up through the zone. Rockhurst, gets picked off there. But Rockhurst holding it in. Rockhurst keeping the pressure on. Another high shot. Goaltender bats that one down out of the air. St. Joe shoots one down. St. Joe looking for some kind of penalty. Not sure what it was. Here comes Cowan picking up the puck coming over the red line. Cowan passes to Callahan. Callahan with an open shot. Shoots, gets the rebound and gets it in. And that's a goal. Another goal. By Rockhurst. Rockhurst with 3:09 left in the second period, goes up by a score of 3-0. So Rockhurst really putting some pressure on here. This is good to see, this kind of pressure by Rockhurst. Press facing off. St. Joe coming in behind the net. Rockhurst picks it up, trying to break it out. Rockhurst gets it out of the zone. St. Joe quickly turns it back down in, dumps it all the way in behind the net. Here comes Rockhurst out from behind the net. St. Joe steals it, looking for a quick shot, and that looks like a trip right there, and that will be a trip, as St. Joe player made a pretty nifty move there, and Rockhurst player stuck his stick out and gets called for a trip, I believe. Yes, that's, I think, what we're looking at. Oh, cross-check. Okay, whatever. It was obviously a trip, but anyway. Face off. Rockhurst able to get it out of the zone. St. Joe sends it back down in behind the net. Rockhurst sends it cross ice. Rockhurst, Alibrando dumps it all the way down to the other end. Just working on killing that penalty. Crest picks it up. Drops it off. Rockhurst with a shot on goal. Rockhurst is short-handed here for another minute and 30 seconds. Here comes Rockhurst. Blasdell trying to make a move. He gets through one player, gets through two, can't quite get through the third. Picked up by Rockhurst with a good shot. Glove save by the goaltender. Goaltender snags that down with his right-handed mitt because he is a left-handed goaltender. We have 1:49 left. 1:09 left in the penalty. Assuming nothing else happens, Rockhurst will be back at full strength for the last 30 seconds. St. Joe breaks that one out of the zone. Sends it all the way down the ice. Rockhurst trying to fire it around. Rockhurst breaks it out of the zone. St. Joe sends one up into the netting at yours truly. And that was close. One minute, 21 seconds left in the second period. Rockhurst leading by a score of 3-0. Rockhurst shorthanded for another 42 seconds. Face off. Quick shot by Rockhurst. Quickly grabbed by the goaltender. Rockhurst making a couple personnel changes here. 1:19 left. Puck drops. Picked up by St. Joe. Stopped by Rockhurst at the blue line. Rockhurst brings it back. Rockhurst passing over to the side. Taps it into the St. Joe zone. St. Joe trying to get play together. St. Joe with only 21 seconds left takes a shot from the blue line, blocked by the Rockhurst defense. Rockhurst staying all over him. Rockhurst able to get it out of the zone. Rockhurst circling back. Rockhurst sends it up along the sideboards. And teams are at full strength. Rockhurst's penalty is over. Rockhurst defenseman loses a stick. St. Joe looking to get that shot. They keep coming after it. Here comes Christian chasing the puck down into the St. Joe zone. Alibrando with it. Alibrando makes a nice move. Drops it back to the point. St. Joe steals it. St. Joe with a 2-on-0 opportunity. Blocked by Houlihan. Deflected away. St. Joe unable to pick up that rebound. Rockhurst very quickly turns it back the other direction. Unfortunately, time runs out. Time runs out just as Rockhurst had what looked like was developing into a 3-on-0. So we will very quickly move into the next and final period here. Rockhurst leading by a score of 3-0. Both teams at full strength. So we'll reset our clock here and see what we can do. All right, one more period of play here. 13 minutes. Both teams full strength. Rockhurst leading by a score of 3-0. Puck is dropped. St. Joe pulls it back, but Rockhurst comes after him. St. Joe sends it cross ice up the sideboards. Rockhurst with a nice big hit there along the sideboards. Here comes Rockhurst trying to move it down across the blue line. Blasdell brings it across the blue line, taken away by St. Joe. Rockhurst in behind the net, centering pass goes right through the crease, doesn't connect with anybody. St. Joe sends it out. St. Joe hustling down to get that shot. They're in the corner. St. Joe comes around behind the net, sends it back to the point. Rockhurst there on him, doesn't let him get set up. Rockhurst turns it out. Rockhurst coming through the neutral zone. Robinson to Alibrando. They're in the scrum. Here comes Alibrando, comes out with a big slap shot. Hits the defense. Bounces into the corner. McCarty pokes it through. St. Joe gets back out into the neutral zone. Here comes St. Joe coming across the red line. Looking for a play. Rockhurst all over him. Plenty of blue jerseys back there. Breaking that one up. Rockhurst comes through the neutral zone. The shot on goal goes wide. St. Joe coming over the red line. 1-on-0 opportunity. They don't quite connect on the pass, but they do get a shot off. And what is that? So it looked like somebody had jumped on top of Houlihan. Nope, that's going to be a high stick on Rockhurst. So Rockhurst is going to be down to one man. Puck is dropped. Quick shot on goal, but saved by Houlihan. Face off to the left of Houlihan. 10 minutes, 53 seconds left. Rockhurst wins the face off. Comes back down the ice, flips it in, down into the corner. Here's Klump over to Callahan. St. Joe intercepts it, center ice, long shot into Houlihan. Houlihan settles that one down. .10:24 left. Rockhurst with just over a minute left in their penalty. St. Joe with a long shot around the boards. Fires it in. Glove saved by Houlihan. 44 seconds left in the Rockhurst penalty. 9 minutes, 40 seconds left in the third period. Rockhurst leading by a score of 3-0. Rockhurst with a save. St. Joe won that one right off the bat. 9 minutes, 36 seconds left. 40 seconds left in the Rockhurst penalty. Face off to the left of Houlihan. St. Joe draws it back to the defense. Defense looking for a shot. They whiff. Here comes Rockhurst taking advantage of that. Rockhurst coming through the zone. Hard high shot goes wide. St. Joe brings it back the other direction. St. Joe coming across the net. Houlihan slides across. St. Joe trying to shoot one in, bounces off the defense. St. Joe from the point goes wide of the net. St. Joe digging it out of the corner, shovels it behind the net. There goes one right through the crease. Rockhurst trying to pick it up, unable to break it up. Rockhurst shoots one out. St. Joe. Oh, and there's going to be possibly a penalty. That was clearly a shot on goal after the whistle had blown. So we got to be a little smarter than that. There was Glasgow, the whistle blew, and a couple seconds later he took a shot on goal, which is not something you're supposed to do. 8 minutes, 39 seconds left in the game. 2 minutes. 2-minute penalty for Rockhurst. Shot on goal by St. Joe just goes wide. Houlihan had the pad out. 8:24 left in the third period. Shot by Rockhurst. Rockhurst just trying to clear the zone. Rockhurst finally sends one down the ice. St. Joe back to pick it up. Rockhurst trying to break it up. St. Joe on the move. Comes over the blue line. Long shot. Glove save by Houlihan. Eight minutes, 5 seconds left in the third period. Rockhurst 3, St. Joe 0. Rockhurst on the shorthanded end of the stick here for another minute and 27 seconds. Rockhurst sends it up and out of the zone. St. Joe chases it all the way down. Rockhurst going after him. Here comes Rockhurst, picks up a shot. Picked up that loose puck right there in front of the net. And almost put in a shorthanded goal there. St. Joe moving it out. St. Joe dumps one all the way down. That's not going to be an icing. It doesn't quite make it. St. Joe comes in, delivers a hit. Rockhurst with a high flip shot all the way down the ice, right on goal. And goaltender stops that one, sends it over. Here comes St. Joe coming through center ice. 3-on-3. St. Joe coming around behind. Rockhurst picks it up and sends down a wobbler all the way down the ice. It'll kill off another 10 or 15 seconds here. 20 seconds left in the penalty. 6 minutes, 50 seconds left in the third period. Here comes St. Joe. Long shot. Nope. Deflected by Rockhurst defense. Does not let that shot get through. St. Joe coming once again. Both teams are at full strength. Rockhurst has now 5 skaters. The shorthanded play is over. Here comes Rockhurst with all 5 skaters looking to come down the ice with 6 minutes, 27 seconds left. Some good hitting along the board. Sessler digs it out, sends it all the way down into the corner, and chases. Sessler intercepts, puts a shot on goal. Nice shot there from the top of the circle. St. Joe just fires it down the ice. It doesn't make it all the way down, so it won't be an icing. Rockhurst hustling back. St. Joe intercepts that breakout attempt. Comes back down in, trying to center, hits the back of the net. A lot of action in front of the net there. Rockhurst needs to stay on these guys. Here comes Rockhurst, 3-on-2 opportunity. Rockhurst right in front of the goal. Goaltender batted that one away just in the nick of time. Here comes St. Joe, fires one down into the zone. Rockhurst first back to get it. Sets up behind the net. Rockhurst looking for a pass, broken up by St. Joe. Rockhurst trying to get that puck out of the zone, but St. Joe staying on him. Rockhurst player breaks his stick. He's got to put it down. Put down that stick, McTavish. They're not supposed to skate off with the stick. They're supposed to just leave it lay there. I think we need a little instruction on that. At least that's the way I was taught. 5 minutes, 19 seconds left in the game here at this JV contest. Rockhurst 3, Griffons 0. Rockhurst wins the faceoff, draws it behind the net. St. Joe presses in quickly. Rockhurst gets control of the puck coming out through the zone. Here comes Klump with a backhand pass, centered, broken up by St. Joe right in front of the net. Kress turns it around, quick shot on goal. And that's saved by the goaltender. What is going on there? Oh, it did go in. It did go in. So Rockhurst scores. Rockhurst brings the score up to 4-0. A lot of batting around and flapping around there in front of the net. I did not see an actual shot. I think it just got poked in underneath somebody. So with 4 minutes, 51 seconds left in the third period, Rockhurst leads by a score of 4-0. St. Joe wins the faceoff, pushes it into the Rockhurst zone. Rockhurst stops it, sends it back through the neutral zone. St. Joe circling up, Rockhurst keeping after him. Rockhurst doing a great job tonight of not letting him get anything. Blasdell takes a long shot from the blue line, snagged by the St. Joe goaltender. Keeps that one in his glove, and there will be a face-off to the right of the St. Joe goal. Face-off, won by Rockhurst, back to the point. Rockhurst trying to move it into the front of the net. Gets broken up by St. Joe. Up along the boards, Rockhurst keeping the pressure on. Here comes St. Joe bringing it through. St. Joe back behind their own net. Just under 4 minutes to go. St. Joe sends it all the way down. That'll be an icing, but I think we had some activity behind the play there. Not sure what happened, but we have a St. Joe player on the ice. Slow to get up. Coaches are coming out. Not quite sure what happened. Looks like we've got the guy with the medical backpack is coming out onto the ice. St. Joe player's showing some signs of movement now. I think he just had something happen to him. Got the wind knocked out of him or something. He's sitting up now. All right, they got him up off the ice. That's always good to see. I think they just slammed into the boards down there. I'm not seeing any indication of a penalty. Maybe there is. 3 minutes, 52 seconds left in the third period. Rockhurst 4, St. Joe Griffons 0. So after the injury timeout, looks like both teams come out with all 5 skaters, so we're at full strength, no penalty. Face off, won by Rockhurst. St. Joe picks it up though, dumps it down in behind the goal. Rockhurst down in behind our goal. Rockhurst bringing it out, looking to make a play, coming out, they do. Passing it up through the zone. Latz on the left wing, bringing it down. Latz takes a hit. St. Joe coming in, trying to get some wood on it. Deflected away by a blocker save by Houlihan. We're definitely getting some hitting going on here late in the game. And that will be an icing as Rockhurst got a hold of the puck and just slung it down the ice. 3 minutes, 13 seconds left in the game. Getting a little physical, getting a little chippy, as it is prone to happen at the end of a hockey match. And it looks like we have something going on here. As the referee is speaking to the scoreboard operator, that always indicates something's happening. Maybe not. Oh yeah, we do have one St. Joe player just went into the box. I did not catch what the penalty was, but it is, as I said, getting a little chippy. So 3 minutes, 13 seconds left in the game. And for the next 2 minutes, St. Joe is subject to a minor penalty. So Rockhurst, all things stay the same, will have the next 2 minutes with a one-man advantage. Rockhurst moving it into the corner. Christian. With a nice move. Not sure what we got going on there. The refs need to get this one under control here. Looks like we have a timeout. 2 minutes, 53 seconds left in the game. Rockhurst leading by a score of 4-0. 1 minute, 40 seconds left in the penalty to the St. Joe Griffons. Timeout is over. 2 minutes, 53 seconds left in the game. Both teams heading down into the St. Joe end. Both teams, no, Rockhurst has a power play, minute 40 seconds left. Rockhurst picks up the puck behind the net. Rockhurst looking for a centering pass. Rockhurst with a wraparound. Doesn't quite get it to go. St. Joe sends it all the way out and down the ice. No icing as St. Joe is down by one man. Here comes Christian coming up through the neutral zone. Christian with a 3-on-3. He shoots, long shot, hits the pipe, and deflects up into the netting. Great shot by Christian. Great shot by Christian there. You probably heard that one on the camera as that deflected. Got a solid piece of pipe and went up into the netting behind the goal. 2 minutes, 11 seconds left. Cowan comes on to center. Cowan centering, wins, draws it back. Shot from the point, goes high and wide. St. Joe looking for a long shot. They send it down in. Houlihan deflects it into the corner. And that one picked up by St. Joe. They try to center one. Houlihan decides just to scoop it up. Puck drops. Rockhurst wins the face-off. Rockhurst coming down through the neutral zone. Rockhurst puts one on net. Goaltender forced to cover that one up. And what do we have going on here? So we got St. Joe player upset with how things are going and lipping off at the ref. I'm not sure the ref wants to put up with that, but so we have 1 minute 45 seconds left in the third period. And Cowan is apparently going to the box, so Cowan's in the box, so we're going to have 4-on-4 hockey here. 32 seconds left in the original. 32 seconds left in the original penalty that St. Joe has. Now Rockhurst starts with a fresh 2 minutes, so conceivably Rockhurst could be shorthanded for the remainder of the game once the St. Joe penalty expires. Right now it's 4-on-4 hockey. Rockhurst comes away with the puck. Rockhurst coming through the neutral zone. Rockhurst flings one down in towards the goal. Goes wide. St. Joe trying to bring it out. Broken up by Rockhurst. Here comes St. Joe through the neutral zone, looking to get that shot, drop pass. Broken up by Rockhurst. Rockhurst comes around behind the net. Rockhurst trying to set one up. St. Joe is now at full strength. Rockhurst is shorthanded for another minute and 17 seconds. Rockhurst chasing. St. Joe coming through, long shot, goes wide, comes all the way back up the sideboards. Rockhurst delivering a hit. Here comes Rockhurst, shorthanded, making a move. Rockhurst can fire it down if they want. Rockhurst apparently getting another penalty. Not quite sure what happened there. Lutz goes to the box. So Rockhurst will be shorthanded. There's 38 seconds left in the game. Rockhurst has a penalty of 53 seconds, so that will exceed the game. And now just got another penalty for 2 minutes. So Rockhurst has 3 skaters. St. Joe has 5 skaters. Rockhurst leading 4-0. Rockhurst trying to clear the zone. St. Joe shoots one in, deflected. Rockhurst picks up the puck. Rockhurst goes around behind the net. Rockhurst needs to get that thing out of there. Rockhurst, St. Joe centering. Rockhurst trying to break it up. Rockhurst picks up the puck along the sideboards. Gets that out of the zone. Shot in behind the net. Rockhurst back there to pick it up. Rockhurst needed to get that out of the zone. What did we have happen here now? We've got yet another penalty. So that looked like, I believe that was a high stick on St. Joe. They batted it out of the air, so it comes back down into the St. Joe zone. It's not a penalty. It's just not a play you can do. You just can't play lacrosse-style hockey here. Back to Rockhurst. Rockhurst attempts a shot. St. Joe coming back through the zone one more time, and that's the end of the game. And we have, in this JV contest, Rockhurst 4, St. Joe Griffons 0. Teddy Houlihan with a shutout. Well-earned shutout. Plenty of shots, high-quality shots. Teddy Houlihan turned every one of them away. So, with that, that will end our evening here with JV winning 4-0. Varsity lost earlier this evening, but we had some great hockey. These are two very well-matched teams, and some good physical hockey. Not too many penalties, but some pretty good activity there. So that was fun to watch. We got two great games in. We're going to be taking a break now until after Thanksgiving. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving. And we're going to resume hockey on December 5th, where the varsity will take on, once again, this St. Joe team. So, some real good hockey here from Community Ice Center in Independence, and I'm going to be signing off now, and we will call that a day. Thank you.